U.S. President Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential elections in no small part by winning the black and minority vote. His commitment to help Native American communities has culminated in an executive order aimed to reform federal funding for tribal nations or groups. VOA White House correspondent Anita Powell reports from the Department of the Interior.
President Joe Biden doesn't deny that the Native people of this country have suffered, and the federal government has work to do.
It's hard work to heal the wrongs of the past and change the course and move forward. But the actions we're taking today are key steps into that new era of tribal sovereignty and self-determination. A new era grounded in dignity and respect that recognizes your fundamental rights to govern and grow on your own terms. That's what this summit is all about.
Biden, speaking here on the ancestral land of the Nacotchunk people, announced more than 190 agreements during a summit with about 300 tribal leaders Wednesday. They include an executive order that will make it easier to access federal funding, plus efforts to clean up nuclear sites, support clean energy transitions, and work toward the repatriation of Native remains and sacred objects. The leader of one of the largest groups told VOA that the government's efforts have been very, very positive, and said he hoped to see more.
The most important thing for the Cherokee Nation, I think, in all tribes is the efficient deployment of resources and then allowing tribes to decide how to use those resources.
But he said, as his people well know, land dispossession and conflict are not ancient history. Here's his advice to Biden and Middle Eastern leaders as war rages in Gaza.
We have a history of being dispossessed from our land, and so I would just remind people that there's a way to balance rights. I think we're trying to do that in the United States in terms of Indian country versus the rest of the country. We haven't perfected it, but I think we're making some progress. So all I would say is the respect and dignity that every human being deserves ought to be on display. And
younger tribal citizens say they have high expectations.
I voted for Biden in 2020, and I believe there is so much more that could be done, especially in terms of climate and how we look at food sovereignty.
But if she could ask the president for anything, she said, it would be for a ceasefire in Gaza.
If that were happening to us, I'd like to believe that it would be stopped immediately. But, considering President Biden won't even call for a ceasefire, I don't know about that.
Taylor says she works through this generational trauma with poetry, but also by covering herself head to toe in reminders of the artistry and persistence of her people. Anita Powell, VOA News, U.S. Department of the Interior.